Hello and welcome back to the most amazing channel on the internet. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today we're talking about the top 10 scariest haunted castles in the world. Ooh, I like the sound of this list. Castles are usually very old pieces of architecture with lots of history, but they are also hella creepy. Have you ever been to a castle? Let me know your thoughts on castles in the comment section down below. Let me know your favourite. Do you have a castle in your town or city? I'd love to hear about it. Also, while you're down there leaving a comment, why don't you like this video and share it with a friend, and don't forget to check out our description box for links to our most amazing Instagram. Also, do stick around to the end of the video where I'll be reading out comments from a previous one. Alright, let's do this. Coming in at number 10 we have the Tower of London. Ah, the Tower of London, the scene of much betrayal and bloodshed. There aren't enough hours in the day to list the amount of ghosts said to haunt this royal fortress on the banks of the River Thames. The tower has been the prison and death spot of some of the most famous people in British history, including Henry VIII's wife Anne Boleyn. She is said to haunt the tower to this day. Also, haunting the tower are two young princes who were killed on the orders of Richard III. The two youngsters appear most frequently to other children who visit the tower on school trips. The most dramatic ghost of the Tower of London though is the ghost of the Countess of Salisbury. Now she had a very grisly death there indeed. She broke free of her executioner, who instead of chopping off her head, hacked her up with an axe. She can be heard screaming and running riot in the castle's grounds. One tourist had a turn when she was on a guided tour of the tower. In one of the rooms used to imprison the former enemies of the crown, she simply had a breakdown. She started screaming, "There's so much suffering." Apparently the suffering can still be felt in the grounds today. On top of the human spectres, the tower is also said to be haunted by the ghost of a bear. A bear! Coming in at number 9 we have Screaming Montebello Castle. Montebello Castle is located in Switzerland near the border with Italy. Look at it, it is absolutely stunning. This castle was built in the 14th century, so it's had 6 centuries of history. The most enduring tale from the castle is the story of Gwendolina, an albino girl who lived in the castle and was kept there. Being an albino was socially scorned back in those days, and her mother tried to dye her hair with natural herbs to try and give it some colour, but it ended up turning blue, which earned her the nickname of Azarina. She was forbidden to leave the castle, and her father was ashamed of her. One day, under very mysterious circumstances, the girl was killed. Stories do vary as to exactly how, but they all involve her letting out a string of blood-curdling screams. Azarina died on the 21st of June 1375, but her screams can still be heard in the castle today, and are loudest during the summer solstice, the anniversary of her death. Coming in at number 8 we have HIMEJI Castle in Japan. HIMEJI Castle was built in the 1300s in a hilltop in the Hygo prefect. Now the beautiful castle is home to a dark legend and a wronged ghostly presence. The story goes that once a servant by the name of Okiku was accused of losing valuable crockery, and the loss of the dishes seemed to be reason enough for her to take her life. Okiku was dragged from the kitchen and thrown into a well in the castle grounds, where she died. It is said that her ghost still haunts the castle today. She is said to haunt both the grounds and the kitchen. She can be heard counting dishes while sobbing, and then when she gets to 9 she runs shrieking and shrieking back into the well. Coming in at number 7 we have the ghost of Tuileries Palace. There is a ghost of a red man spotted outside Tuileries Palace in Paris. Now he was said to be a local butcher. Others say he was a henchman of the 16th century Queen Catherine de Medici. Both legends agree that his name was Jean and that the Queen had him killed because he held way too many secrets. A while after his death, a man was spotted in blood-red attire wandering the gardens. One man who spoke to his ghost, Neuville, reported that Jean swore vengeance to the Queen and the crown, and the Kingdom of France. Aristocrats of the palace thought that he was a sign of bad luck to come. Indeed, Marie Antoinette supposedly saw his ghost shortly before meeting the guillotine herself. Napoleon, it was said, quite liked him and would talk to him about war strategy. Of course. Those visiting the old palace today occasionally do spot the man in red, which is a bad thing indeed because it's supposed to be that, you know, he's a sign of bad things to come. Coming into number 6, we have the Witches of MOOSHAM Castle. Unternberg, Austria held its own gruesome witch trials between 1675 and 1690. These were the Zuberjackal trials, during which 139 people were killed. Now strangely for witch trials, most of those killed were men, 113 men to be precise. Those killed on suspicion of witchcraft were tortured first, and then afterwards they were burned alive or hung or decapitated. As you can imagine, as the scene of hundreds of brutal and unjust murders, the building carries a certain tension. And you can feel that tension even if you don't believe in ghosts, but if you do, it is thought that the spirits of the wronged plague the castle, crying and shrieking at night. One of the murdered was a 10-year-old orphan who was killed simply for being homeless. His cries are said to be the loudest. Beyond the story of the witch trials, there is a tale of werewolves in the palace. Now these stem back to the 1800s. Back then, deer and cattle began showing up dead around the grounds. Suspected werewolves were taken to the dungeon and killed. Some say they hear the growls of torture victims emanating from the dungeons at night even today. Coming in at number 5, we have Frankenstein's castle. You may recognize the name Frankenstein. Well, it is thought that this castle inspired Mary Shelley's famous novel of the same name. The castle is in the Darmstadt district of Germany in the Hesse region. The 13th century castle is thought to be haunted by the ghost of Johann Conrad Dippel, a bad man. Dippel was a physician and alchemist who wanted to resurrect the dead. He would rob graves by night and then cut up the bodies and use them in his elixirs and potions. It seems that he wanted to find a potion to resurrect the dead and also to generate immortality. In the end, drinking one of his concoctions actually killed him. It is thought that his spirits haunt the Frankenstein castle today, and so too do the many spirits of his unearthed experiments. He is most frequently spotted between Christmas and New Year sitting on the chapel roof. Coming in at number 4, we have the hellish HOUSKA castle in the Czech Republic. HOUSKA castle is a gothic fort in the middle of nowhere, and it is said that even to this day, animals stay away from the castle walls. They prefer to be out in the wild rather than take shelter in the structure. In folklore, the castle is known as the gateway to hell. Legend has it that demons and dragons have been spotted pouring forth from the castle's vile mouth. Indeed, some even say that they've seen ghouls there today. To make matters worse, the castle was taken over by the Nazis during World War II. It is said that they tortured hundreds of people there, as well as conducting some really inhumane medical tests. Some think that the Nazis were drawn to the building as it was so hellish, others say it was simply a coincidence. Most do agree, however, that the property is haunted and only a few brave souls will step inside. Those that have claim that they have constantly felt like they're being watched. Coming in at number 3, we have Dracula's castle. Dracula. No. So Bran's castle, better known as Dracula's castle, is a stately 13th century castle linked to the dark legend of Dracula because of its Transylvania location, or modern day Romania. Though famous literary vampire aside, the castle was once home to the extra ghoulish Vlad the Impaler, thought to be one of the worst and most evil tyrants to ever live. Vlad the Impaler was alive until 1477, and in his 50-ish years on Earth, he caused literal hell. Many suspected that he himself was a vampire because of the ghoulish way that he would kill people. It is a popular legend that the vampire, or indeed the ghost of Vlad, haunt the castle today. Honestly, how terrifying. Coming in at number 2, we have FYVIE Castle in Scotland. I love Scotland. You will find plenty of ghost stories in Scotland, especially in Scottish castles. A little north of Aberdeen, you will find the breathtaking FYVIE Castle. FYVIE is haunted by the ghost of poor Lilias Drummond, who died of both an empty stomach and an empty heart. It seems that she had an abusive husband who would beat her, and in the end it is said that he locked her in a room and starved her to death in 1601. It seems that Lilias's ghost has haunted the castle ever since, and strangely appears as a green spectre. The night her husband took a new wife, she carved her name in the stone wall of her husband's bedchamber. Apparently this carving can still be seen there today. It seems that her spirit shows up when bad things are about to happen to the castle's owners or to the area surrounding the castle. Now, aside from her mournful spirit, it is also said that the castle is haunted by a trumpeter whose instrument can be heard when death is nearby. Usually I'm like, bring on the trumpets, but not when they signal death. Finally, coming into number 1 of the scariest, most haunted castles in the world, we have Leap Castle in Ireland. Leap Castle is often hailed as one of the most haunted castles in the entire world. The castle in County Offaly dates back to the 1200s and today is in partial ruin. The castle was owned by the O'Carroll's clan, but it was under constant siege. On one occasion, a priest was killed in a brawl between warring clans. Now sadly, his death took place in what is now known as the Bloody Chapel. The priest is said to haunt the chapel today and is pretty unhappy about his death, which, you know, fair. The story of the priest is one of the more notable deaths, but plenty of blood has been shed in the castle at the hands of the attackers and the O'Carrolls. The O'Carrolls were said to have been brutish back in the day, and they were thought to have captured and raped a woman who fell pregnant. When the woman birthed her child, unfortunately the infant was killed by her captors. It is said that now her angry spirit haunts the castle, wielding a knife ready to stab in a fit of revenge. The worst spirit of all though is the spirit of something that locals call it. It is around the size of a sheep and is an unidentified animal, and it has a decaying face. Before you even see it, you will smell it. It comes with a waft of rotting flesh and sulphur, which, ugh. Ghosts, one thing. Ghosts that smell, a whole different ballgame. So guys, that was the top 10 scariest haunted castles. Would you like to visit them? I actually really would. I love history and I find castle history to be like super rich and amazing. Although I will say, I'd probably just visit in the day, leave those ghosts to have the night. So guys, before I finish this video, I just want to read some comments from the top 10 scary things pulled from swamps. You guys loved it. Dark Samurai said, the bog butter is gross, but I found it interesting about the tank. Mate, I agree with you. Now Carrie Ann said something pretty similar. She said, wow, this is fascinating stuff, but ew, bog butter. I know, honestly, it made me feel so sick, and I told Danny and Jack about it and they felt really sick about it too, so bleh, bog butter, no. Our channel sponsor Misty Berrier said, hey guys, as usual, great video, I love you guys and love this channel, keep it up. We will! Thank you guys for watching to the end. If you made it to the end, right, made it to the end, and also don't forget to let me know that you love a good castle. What castles have you visited? Are there any in your city or town or village? Let me know. For now, I'm your host Rebecca Felgate. Don't forget to check out the links in the description box and I will see you guys next time. Bye!